After Michael proposed, I was thrilled. We planned to marry, surrounded by love and excitement. I'm Naomi, 25 years old, enjoying life with Michael, our child, and my supportive parents. Our story began 3 years ago at 33, when Michael, my then colleague and movie buddy, asked me out. His kindness and patience made him beloved at work, and I fell for him hard. Michael dreamt of starting his own business, and I was eager to support him. Our engagement was a joyful milestone. We first shared our news with my family, who warmly welcomed Michael. My parents approved of our union, and Michael bonded well with them, especially over drinks with my dad. Encouraged by their acceptance, we looked forward to introducing me to Michael's family the following weekend, hopeful for a similar reception. However, the visit to Michael's home was starkly different. His family, led by his mother Addison and sister Hannah, rejected me outright, forbidding any contact and dismissing me harshly. Their beauty had fostered a sense of entitlement, making them hostile towards perceived rivals. Even Michael's father and brother joined in this cold dismissal. Despite this initial rejection, the past 6 months have seen a dramatic turn. I've achieved a form of grand revenge against their unwarranted envy and hostility. Not through spite, but by building a happy life with Michael away from their negativity. Our bond, strengthened by overcoming these challenges, has flourished, proving that love and support can triumph over bitterness and jealousy. Before visiting Michael's family, I hadn't heard much about them from him. Given that Michael lived alone, I assumed he wasn't very close to his family. However, the night before our visit, Michael mentioned on the phone that his parents might be a bit odd, which left me feeling a bit uneasy, but I chose not to dwell on it too much. The following day, we met at the station and made our way to his family home. My nerves were on edge, partly because it was my first time visiting his family, and partly because I was unsure what to expect. The sight of their grand mansion, with its sprawling garden, was intimidating, and I wondered about the kind of upbringing Michael had in such a luxurious setting. Michael, noticing my nervousness, reassured me with his gentle smile, which helped calm me down a bit. Upon entering, we were greeted by his mother, Addison, who was the epitome of elegance and grace. She welcomed us warmly, a stark contrast to the brief warning Michael had given me the night before. Inside, the rest of Michael's family, including his father, brother, sister-in-law Hannah, and their children, greeted us with smiles. The atmosphere was surprisingly welcoming, and as we sat down to dinner, Michael and I shared the news of our engagement. The reaction was overwhelmingly positive, with Addison and Hannah expressing their delight at having me join the family. The evening was filled with lively conversation and shared stories, making me feel embraced by Michael's family despite my initial apprehensions. My father-in-law was the owner of a successful company that organized package tours, and my brother-in-law, who still lived at home, worked there as the executive director with plans to eventually take the helm. Addison and Hannah, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law respectively, were homemakers who led refined lives filled with hobbies like dance and flower arrangement classes. Hannah, in particular, took great care in her appearance and carried herself with confidence. During our visit, my father-in-law was especially welcoming, frequently engaging me in conversation to make me feel comfortable. His kindness was palpable, and I felt genuinely appreciated. However, the mood shifted slightly when he inquired about my employment status at the same company as Michael, wondering if I was a contract worker. I explained that I was hired as a full-time employee straight out of university, just like Michael. Our company is well-regarded and competitive, attracting many job applicants, but I managed to secure my position there after graduating. When my father-in-law asked about my university, I shared that I graduated from Harvard, which seemed to impress him greatly. Both he and Michael showered me with compliments, which, while flattering, left me feeling a bit embarrassed. I had attended a prestigious university in the U.S., dedicating myself fully to my studies, often at the cost of my sleep. My parents, despite not being wealthy, had worked tirelessly to support my education. Motivated by a desire to repay their sacrifices, I aimed for a reputable college and a good job. My determination was unwavering, fueled by a deep gratitude towards my parents and a commitment to making them proud. As the conversation flowed, I couldn't help but notice Addison and Hannah's silence. Their earlier warmth seemed to fade, replaced by a quietness that suggested they might not share the rest of the family's enthusiasm about my achievements and background. Feeling the need to shift the suddenly tense atmosphere, I admired the fresh flower arrangement on the table, complimenting Addison on it. Her response, however, was curt and dismissive. Confusion washed over me as her tone sharply contrasted the warmth she had shown moments earlier. Echoing Addison's sentiment, Hannah suggested that my advanced education likely made me view their domestic conversations as beneath me. This was far from my intention, and her words left me speechless, a mix of embarrassment and hurt bubbling up inside. Michael stepped in, defending me and stating that I was not one to judge others, his support a small solace in the awkwardness that had enveloped the room. The atmosphere grew even more strained as my father-in-law, having indulged in drinks since the afternoon, dozed off, and my brother-in-law distracted himself with his phone, clearly uninterested in the gathering. At Michael's cue, we decided it was time to leave, a decision that lifted a weight off my shoulders. On our way back, Michael apologized for the day's events, explaining that his mother and sister's pride, stemming from their educational background, made them sensitive to perceived slights. He shared that Addison, before becoming a part of their family, had worked in a flower shop, capturing his father's attention and affection with her beauty. Her popularity with customers and his father's persistent courtship led to their marriage. It was clear that even now, Addison held a significant influence over him, a testament to their enduring connection. Michael's explanation shed light on the dynamics of his family, offering a glimpse into the complexities and sensitivities that shaped their interactions. Hannah, my sister-in-law, was also strikingly beautiful. She and my brother-in-law were once college classmates and reconnected at a reunion in their early 30s. Struck by her beauty, my brother-in-law was smitten, and, after persistent courtship, they became a couple. Like my father-in-law, my brother-in-law seemed to be under his wife's influence, often bending to her will. Despite my own academic achievements, I couldn't grasp why they appeared so insecure. They were both attractive and had caring husbands dedicated to their well-being. The day ended with feelings of doubt and a bit of sadness, leaving me to ponder the future of my marriage amidst this discomfort. Nonetheless, having received blessings for our marriage from both sides of the family, Michael and I proceeded with our wedding plans. Despite lingering doubts, I believed open communication would bridge any gaps between us. Michael reassured me. "Don't worry, I'll always be by your side, Naomi," helping me maintain a hopeful outlook. After months of planning, it was the eve of our wedding when an unexpected call from Michael's mother brought everything to a halt. The call ended abruptly with Michael exclaiming in disbelief. My in-laws had apparently booked a trip and would miss our wedding. The news was baffling and left us both anxious for an explanation. Attempts to reach not only Addison but also my father-in-law and brother-in-law were futile, with our calls going unanswered. Confused and seeking clarity, we rushed to the in-laws' house, only to find it deserted, an ominous sign of their absence. Reflecting on my previous visit, I wondered aloud if I had inadvertently offended Michael's mother and sister, recalling the tense atmosphere. Michael tried to reassure me, indicating that the situation was as puzzling to him as it was to me. This unexpected turn of events on the eve of our wedding left us both in a state of shock and uncertainty, questioning the dynamics of our family relationships and what lay ahead. Michael had previously mentioned that both his mother and sister took great pride in their intelligence, which sometimes made them quite stubborn. He suggested that their absence at our wedding might be rooted in some unresolved grudge, though he couldn't be sure. When I questioned why Michael's father and brother-in-law would also miss the wedding, Michael explained that they tended to follow the lead of the women in the family, likely to avoid any conflict. I was stunned by this revelation. Despite our efforts, we couldn't reach Michael's family on our wedding day, forcing us to proceed without them. The situation left me bewildered and questioning if I had somehow been at fault, or if they truly had prioritized a trip to the hot springs over their son's wedding. My parents were visibly confused and concerned when they learned about the absence of Michael's family, offering their support to Michael despite their own mixed feelings. The absence of Michael's family became a whispered topic among our guests, and even the boss, who had graciously agreed to speak at our reception, inquired about their whereabouts. We found ourselves awkwardly excusing their absence by claiming they were ill, not wanting to divulge the true, baffling reason. 5 days post-wedding, we visited Michael's parents to inform them the ceremony had concluded. Addison's casual apology for missing the wedding, mentioning a forgotten souvenir, struck me as insincere. Trying to maintain peace, I masked my disappointment with a polite response, though inside I felt deeply hurt. Michael, unable to hide his frustration, confronted the situation head-on, emphasizing the absurdity of canceling attendance at the last minute and questioning the normalcy of their decision. Hannah's response to this confrontation remained unheard, but it was clear that the dynamics within Michael's family were complex and strained. In navigating these challenging interactions, we were left to consider the implications for our future relationship with his family. Hannah's shocking admission that she would have attended the wedding if I weren't the bride left me reeling in confusion. The tension escalated when Addison accused me of ruining what should have been a joyous occasion for her, demanding an apology as if I were the instigator of their absence. Michael defended me, insisting I hadn't done anything to warrant such blame. The confrontation reached its peak when my father-in-law, previously silent, erupted in anger, demanding we leave their home immediately. As we were hastily making our exit, I felt a sharp pain in my foot and discovered a caterpillar inside my shoe. The situation went from bad to worse as Addison and Hannah observed my discomfort with barely concealed glee. Despite my wish to leave quickly and without further incident, Addison's parting words were a cold request from me to keep my distance from their family, except for weddings and funerals, abruptly shutting the door before I could seek any clarification. The ride home was filled with Michael's apologies, assuring me that I no longer needed to make any effort to connect with his family. This entire ordeal left me feeling wronged and bewildered, wondering what I had done to be treated so harshly. The aftermath of that day was a painful reminder of the encounter, as I woke up to intense itching and discovered my body covered in red, swollen welts. A visit to the dermatologist confirmed that the caterpillar was to blame, leading to 2 weeks of unbearable itching and sleepless nights. Reflecting on the visit, I recalled seeing my brother-in-law near my shoes, which now seemed suspicious. This series of unfortunate events underscored the complex and strained relationship with Michael's family, leaving me to navigate the difficult emotions of feeling blamed and excluded, while also dealing with the physical discomfort caused by the unexpected caterpillar encounter. After the caterpillar incident, my trust in Michael's family had eroded to the point where any accidental occurrence seemed suspect. A month later, Michael began experiencing severe stomach pains, leading to his hospitalization. Doctors suspected a gastric ulcer, necessitating further tests. Despite the strained relations and being explicitly told to avoid contact with his family, except for weddings or funerals, I felt it was necessary to inform them of Michael's condition. With trembling hands and a nauseous feeling, I called Addison, Michael's mother. The sound of her voice immediately heightened my anxiety. I explained Michael's situation, only to be met with a dismissive response. Addison insinuated that Michael's health issues were trivial and suggested they were a result of my supposedly overworking him. She then bluntly stated her desire to have no further contact with me and emphasized it was unnecessary to inform her about such trivial matters. Her lack of concern for Michael's well-being left me stunned. Before I could process her words, my brother-in-law took the phone, accusing me of being overly persistent and intrusive. He expressed annoyance at being contacted and hung up abruptly. The call's end felt like a definitive break, not just in communication, but in any semblance of familial bond that might have existed. The harsh words from Addison and the outright rejection from the rest of Michael's family underscored their unwillingness to see beyond their prejudices and biases, even in light of Michael's health crisis. This realization was a painful acknowledgement of the chasm between us, one that seemed to widen with each interaction. Feeling deeply wronged by Michael's family's dismissive and hurtful attitude, I resolved to cut ties with them entirely. Their lack of concern and refusal to communicate, especially during Michael's health scare, solidified my decision. I vowed never to reach out again, regardless of circumstances. Fortunately, Michael's health scare turned out to be a mild gastric ulcer. With proper medication, he quickly recovered. When I shared the ordeal with Michael, he firmly decided that we should distance ourselves from his family. He declared that if his family couldn't accept me, they were no longer considered family to him, despite the blood ties. A year later, Michael pursued his dream of starting a software sales company, utilizing his extensive experience from his previous job. Watching him work tirelessly to make his dream a reality was truly inspiring. Our joy multiplied when we welcomed a healthy baby boy into our family. My parents, ecstatic about their grandchild, visited often, filling our lives with happiness. We chose not to inform Michael's parents about our son, suspecting their indifference. Life without contact from Michael's family brought us certain peace. However, 5 months later, the outbreak of the new coronavirus imposed a global crisis, affecting many businesses, including those in the restaurant and tourism sectors. This led me to wonder about the state of Michael's father's package tour company amidst the pandemic. But I quickly reminded myself that it was no longer our concern. In this new chapter of our lives, Michael and I focused on our family and his budding business, facing the challenges and uncertainties of the world together, but with a sense of unity and determination that overshadowed any past conflict. Despite the tough economic climate, Michael's business was flourishing, a stark contrast to the uncertain beginnings. Income had begun to exceed what Michael earned as an employee, bringing a sense of stability and success to our lives. However, this period also saw Michael's parents reaching out more frequently, their calls going unanswered and their voicemails ignored, as Michael had chosen to distance himself from them. I often reassured Michael that it was okay to maintain contact with his family, recognizing the complexity of his feelings towards them. Despite my own disdain for their treatment of us, I understood they were his family. Yet, Michael's commitment to our relationship was unwavering. He made it clear that my acceptance by his family was non-negotiable, and without it, he chose to prioritize our unity over familial bonds. The persistence of Michael's parents was met with silence until a letter arrived, revealing their business was nearing bankruptcy, and they sought financial help. The audacity of this request, given their previous insistence on cutting ties, was striking. We decided not to respond, reflecting a sentiment of letting them face the consequences of their actions. Unexpectedly, my phone rang one day while I was at work, and a voicemail was left, seemingly from Michael's family, who had resorted to contacting me after failing to reach Michael. The message was a blunt warning that if Michael continued to ignore them, they would take more direct action. Reluctantly listening to the voicemail, I was confronted with the stark reality of the situation. The call, an unwelcome intrusion, was a reminder of the unresolved tensions between us and Michael's family. Their threat to escalate the situation if ignored added a new layer of complexity to our decision to maintain distance, leaving us to navigate the delicate balance between preserving our peace and addressing the lingering shadows of familial obligation. 2 days following the receipt of a mysterious voicemail, Michael and I were relishing a tranquil family day at home on his day off, which coincidentally fell on a Sunday. Our lunch had just concluded, and we were in the midst of deciding how to spend the remainder of our day, when suddenly, the doorbell echoed through the house. As I glanced at the door monitor, the sight of my 4-in-laws waiting outside took me by surprise. Michael, noticing my bewildered expression, came over to see for himself. He sighed deeply and suggested we could simply ignore them, believing they would eventually leave if we didn't respond. However, I felt a sense of obligation to welcome them, given the distance they traveled, and argued that it would be only right to let them in despite any underlying tensions. Contrary to Michael's reluctance, I had kept him in the dark about the voicemail deliberately, planning to confront our in-laws with a strategy in mind. My apparent shock at their arrival was nothing but a fey aid, as I had anticipated their visit. The decision to invite them in wasn't out of hospitality, but a calculated move for what I believed was a necessary showdown. Upon their entry, without waiting for an invitation, they barged in, immediately filling the room with tension. They openly expressed their impatience and disdain for our supposed lack of manners, which was just the beginning of an uncomfortable encounter. When Michael's mother noticed our son playing, she feigned ignorance of his identity, to which I pointedly reminded her that he was, in fact, our child. Her pretense of forgetting only to provoke us was evident, and her dismissive attitude towards our request for privacy was met with a cold reminder from me that her interest in our lives was unwelcome. The atmosphere grew even more strained as I turned the conversation towards the purpose of their unexpected visit, hinting at a letter we had received. Michael's father inquired if we had read it, sparking a conversation that suggested a mix of deliberate communication breakdowns and unresolved tensions. The visit, unwelcome yet strategically allowed, set the stage for a confrontation that seemed long overdue, marking a pivotal moment in our complex family dynamics. When Michael's father criticized us for not responding to their urgent plea for contact, I couldn't help but point out the irony. They had previously made it clear they wanted nothing to do with us, so I saw no reason to reach out. It was difficult to contain my amusement at their sudden shift in demeanor, while Michael stayed quiet, letting me lead the conversation. The situation took a turn when my father-in-law, faced with the dire consequences of the pandemic on his travel business, shifted from anger to desperation. He pleaded for financial assistance, outlining the cancellations and lack of new bookings that threatened his company. My response was firm. I couldn't justify helping someone who had disowned us. However, I mentioned that a genuine show of sincerity might make me reconsider. This suggestion led to an outburst from my father-in-law, who then attempted to intimidate me. But the days when their hostility could unsettle me were gone. I stood my ground, leading him to demand apologies from the rest of the family, who reluctantly joined in his pleas. My polite refusal was met with rage, culminating in him physically lashing out in frustration. Michael's intervention at that moment underscored where his loyalties lay. He made it clear that I was his priority and that he could not condone his family's disrespectful treatment of me, even in their time of need. His stance was unequivocal. Without a heartfelt apology to me, there was no place for reconciliation. Michael's commitment to our relationship over familial pressure highlighted the depth of his support and love, firmly closing the door on any false pretenses of amends. In a moment of sheer anger, my father-in-law's temper flared uncontrollably, leading him to physically assault Michael, striking him in the face. The situation escalated quickly from there, with my father-in-law turning his rage towards Michael, who was now defenseless on the ground. In an attempt to intervene, I tried to restrain my father-in-law, only to be pushed away forcefully, resulting in my head colliding with the corner of a table. The impact was severe enough to cause a bleeding wound. The room fell into a tense silence as the other family members watched in shock, unsure of how to react. Amidst the chaos, my father-in-law's desperation for money drove him to start ransacking the room. Seizing the moment, I opened the balcony window and called out for help, attracting the attention of passersby and, shortly after, the police. Upon their arrival, my father-in-law attempted to downplay the incident, fabricating a story to the officers. However, I was quick to counter his claims, urging the police to take action against him for his violence and his attempt to extort money from us. His reaction, a mix of denial and aggression, led to his immediate arrest, along with the questioning of the other family members. While Michael sustained minor injuries from the altercation, the cut on my head required medical attention, resulting in 12 stitches. The aftermath left me with mixed feelings of guilt for putting Michael in harm's way, and relief that the ordeal might have put an end to their financial demands. Reflecting on our first encounter, it became apparent that the initial warmth from my father-in-law was a facade, influenced by Addison and Hannah's underlying jealousy. Their manipulation extended to directing the father-in-law and brother-in-law's behavior towards me, fostering a hostile environment. The incident with the caterpillar, presumably orchestrated by my brother-in-law under Hannah's influence, was a petty manifestation of their envy. This series of events highlighted the deep-seated issues within Michael's family, driven by jealousy and manipulation, ultimately leading to a breakdown in relationships and a violent confrontation that could not be ignored. The aftermath of our confrontation with my in-laws led to a stark turn in their fortunes. Their business, unable to recover, eventually went bankrupt, and they lost their home. Now, both my father-in-law and Addison, nearing their 60s, face the grim reality of trying to enter the workforce again at their age, a daunting task given the circumstances. My brother-in-law, having spent his days at the company without genuine effort and frequently at the casino, found himself ill-equipped for the job market as he approached 40. Lacking practical skills, he resorted to a part-time job at a convenience store, a stark contrast to his previous lifestyle. Hannah, who had lived comfortably as a stay-at-home wife, found herself thrust into job hunting. However, her demanding nature made it challenging for her to maintain any part-time work she managed to find, resulting in her spending most of her time at home, isolated and frustrated. In contrast, after the incident, our family dynamics took a positive turn. My father retired and we decided to live together with my parents. Michael, who had always been thoughtful, suggested the arrangement out of concern for my parents as I am an only child. This decision brought us closer together, providing a supportive and loving environment for our son, who is cared for by my parents during the day. This allows me to return to work with peace of mind, knowing my son is in good hands. Life with Michael, my devoted husband, my caring parents, and our beloved son is filled with happiness. It's a daily reminder of how much I have to be thankful for, a stark contrast to the turmoil we experience with my in-laws. Despite everything, I'm committed to cherishing and never taking for granted the joy and love that surrounds me now.